call this board meeting of the Nelson County Board of Education to order on June 11th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. Please join the board as we say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, meeting goals and agenda.
We are fortunate to be here tonight at the Nelson County Area Technology Center, where we will be learning more about the work at the Future Up Center, as well as learning about some of the continued progress from our Thrive Center, led by Stacy Holderman and crew, along with the Thrive Academy that continues to evolve under new leadership coming this year. Additionally, like we do every June, we'll be updating and reviewing policy and procedures in alignment with some local recommendations along with Kentucky Revised Statutes. Finally, we'll be looking at some facility plan next steps. In particular, we'll be evaluating New Haven and thinking about the long-term development of that plan. So while there's a lot on the agenda, a lot of these are annual update items and then some facility planning items.
Moving on to the Up Center Vision and Data Dashboard.
Can't still have to hold it. I'm sorry. Well, hi, welcome back to the ATC. Everyone here, I hope that as you're here today, you take a good look around, you breathe in this place, because when you come back next June, it's not going to look like this. So thank you, board, for saying yes to this project. Thank you so much for the investment you're making in this place. And we hope that today we can just take some time to honor what has been and then get excited about what will be. So, as you've seen at every other school, as you've had board meetings this past year, we've had incredible progress across our district as principals and school leaders have been sharing about achievement and growth in literacy and math. And I'm going to be doing the same thing here because our ATC classes are just that. They're taking literacy and math at high levels and putting them into authentic practice. So that application is a huge part of what we do here. And so I'm excited to show you some data and celebrations around that. Last June, we shared with you the benefits that we want to offer our students. This was the first time we've put on paper really what we're about and what our goals were. And we've been investing in those all year. We've seen incredible progress. So we've aligned to people, place, and purpose. People, we want to connect students with professional networks that are going to propel their future. Place, we want students to become a contributor to a place, whether that's this community or their workplace. And finally, purpose, we want students to leave and walk through our doors with purpose, with those skills that are going to align to whatever industry they enter into so that they can find success. There's a lot of data that we can talk about in these. You can see some of it on the back of that pamphlet. We're going to focus our conversation, just so you're not here all night. I know you want to be here all night, but just so you're not, around that purpose piece. So really thinking about how are we driving purpose in our work and giving our students purpose within our classes. The way our courses work is students take each course for 2 years, so they'll take 4 courses in each pathway. And at the end of the 4th course, they are considered a completer or an advanced level student, and they are asked to take an end of program assessment, which we call certification exams. These certification exams have actually been created by industry leaders. So this is something that's valid into the industry. Employers look at it and say, yes, this is great. And our students walk away with something more than just a test score, but something they can put on their resume. And some of these even offer additional doors as they look through different pathways. So this year, of all of our completers, our advanced students, we had 71% of students pass those assessments. So that is as a school. You can see the breakdown by programs over here on your right. But that is a huge celebration. We've seen tremendous growth. I want to take a moment and tell you why these exams are so important. So first, at a local level, it helps us see that we're doing the right thing. We have our standards just like English, math, science do. I put an example in your pamphlet of our electrical standards because that's going to be our area we're going to focus on. But you can see in there the different skills that students have to be able to perform on these tests in order to be successful. So these tests tell us, are we teaching the right things? Are we accomplishing what we need? And how do we continue to make our programs better? Because the questions on these tests is what employers have said, yes, our students need to know these things. The second benefit is these tests are a reflection of our district, our school, as far as KDE accountability. So we had great success this year with transition readiness as a district. These exams count toward that. And a lot of these exams, they hold the same weight as, say, the ACT. With the exception that these are built by employers. Not only do they hold weight with KDE, they hold weight in the people who are hiring our kids. We also get additional points in that accountability system through these because these are high demand career clusters. So that's additional celebrations that we have. So when we look at this data, it's a reflection of how we're doing in our classroom. It also helps us share how we're doing as a district to our state. And then finally, these test scores have a huge impact on where our students go next. A lot of these, again, we said they could put them on their resume, but they could also get into doors that may have been closed before. And we have a community partner who's going to speak more about that process here in a minute. So just to give you a comparison where we were in the past and where we're going, and then comparing to where our state is, we've seen tremendous growth over the past 4 years, and this year we have surpassed the state average score with, and this is electrical, sorry, I should have specified. In electrical, 76% of our students who took this exam in electrical passed. So 76% of our students are transition ready, and that's a huge celebration. And let me just tell you, this kid's picture has been all over our stuff. We're really excited about it. So just to give you a snapshot on how this test, or how these exams, how this data is impacting our students. When we have a student enter into our electrical program, and I use electrical as an example because we're in this space, so as you're looking around, this is where our students learn, this is where they work. The first year they enter into their initial courses, they're earning dual credit even as early as a freshman. Their second year, they continue to earn that dual credit, and that's when they take that track assessment. From there, their third year in the electrical program, they have the opportunity to co-op. So now that they've proven they have those skills, they can go into the workplace and put those skills to practice. So this is a great place for our students to gain authentic learning experiences, but also to say, is this something I want? Is this direction? And what other directions are there for me? It also allows students to decide, do I want to enter directly into the workforce when I graduate, or do I want post-secondary training beyond what I've learned at the ATC? So when we think about post-secondary training, there's really two pathways students can take. I'm sorry, I'm getting really nerdy on you today. It's going to get exciting, I promise. So there's two pathways. One is they can continue that dual credit they earned in ECTC and get an AAS, and then enter the workforce. So that would be a traditional, like a technical school. Or another option is if they've passed this track test, they can get direct entry into JATC apprenticeship. We have Mr. Sam Satori here who's going to share a little bit more about what that looks like. But with that, they don't have to go through the same steps that someone off the street would have to go through in order to apply. And then from there, once they finish that apprenticeship and they become a journey person, they're making a tremendous amount to begin with. They're getting benefits, and they also have structured raises. So there's different pathways students can take to find success beyond some more traditional routes. So to share a little bit more about that, we do have two guests here with us tonight. We have Mr. Matthew Downs, who's our instructor. He is new to us this year, and my goodness, was he a blessing to this program. Mr. Downs not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. I'm getting that confused all today. While our students are preparing for their track assessment, he was preparing for his master electrician assessment and passed and got that. So he has been a huge asset and has inspired our students to do great things. We also have Mr. Sam here, who is from the IBEW, and he's going to share a little bit about what that looks like. Last summer, we had Brett Thompson here. He worked at RMAG. He completed our program. We invited him back today, but he had a conflict. He couldn't be here at the last minute. But he is an example of a student who has gone through all these steps. He got his dual credit, he got his track, he co-opted RMAG as an example, and he got direct entry into this JATC apprenticeship. So Sam can talk a little bit more about his journey as well. So gentlemen, you want to come on up?
Hello, everyone. For the ones that don't know me, I'm Matthew Downs. I'm the first year. This is my first year teaching. I'm the electrical instructor here at the ATC. So this year, as you can tell, we had 76% pass rate on the track test, which is huge for us. Meeting the students, we really hit this hard this year. I try to prep them as much as I could because it is a really big deal. It's a bright future ahead of themselves as they pass the track test. So a lot of ways in how we prep for that, we would, so like for instance, one small thing I do every day, when a student come into the room, we do a bell ringer. Some people call them do-nows, but so I have a bell ringer written on the board, and it'd be something out of the code book. I'll ask them a question. For example, I got one written down right here I can give out to you. I'll ask them, according to the branch circuits article, kitchen dishwasher circuits installed in dwelling units must be protected with what? So that makes them grab the code book. They got to flip back into the index, find the article number, go to the article, read through the article itself to find the answer. So the track test is, don't quote me on this, I think you have the blueprints in front of you maybe, but it's roughly 40 to 50% on just code in general. So that's one way we get them ready for the code aspect of it. We come in every day, we do some type of code related article, we practice code throughout the year with our hands-on and then also book work. We do as much as we can to prep them. Like I said, as Ms. Berryman said, I took my master's exam this year. So one of the things I did with that, while the students are, while they're studying for their track exam, I was doing my master exam. So I would take the practice exams that I was taking for my master's, and I would incorporate them in the classroom as well, just to kind of give the students as much code as they possibly could take in at one time. We do a lot of math. In Circuit 1, because the track test is also very heavy on Ohm's law, AC circuits, DC, transformers. So we do a lot to prep for that. A lot of hands-on stuff. I try to get a screwdriver and a meter in their hand as quick as I can, just kind of keep their attention, keep them going, keep them into the class. It's a lot of fun, but we really could not have had that pass rate this year without the students. They really did take it serious. They wanted to pass the track test. We partnered with 6 different people that say, hey, if you pass this test, there's 6 people that we partner with that'll give them a job opportunity. IBEW is one of them. They actually offer, hey, if you pass this test, we guarantee you a seat. So it's a really big deal. I had several people come in this year to kind of talk about future employments, kind of meaning what the track test was, kind of get everybody excited for it and ready to go. But it's been really, really fun this year. I look forward to many years ahead teaching. It really was a blast. And I'll let Sam talk about a little bit of what the IBEW does and some of the benefits they have. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask.
Thank you guys for having me. My name's Sam Satori. I'm a journeyman electrician with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I don't have anything to do with our apprenticeship, actually. I work across the street directly for the Union Hall, but anytime they're tied up, I try to come down and speak on their behalf. Got a pretty good relationship with Matthew and with the former instructor, Mr. Manningly. But the track test, it really opens a lot of doors. At 19 years old, when I got into the industry, I didn't know how lucky I was. I didn't know that I was going to have a pension, a huge 401k plan. Basically, my dad said, you're going to be an electrician, and that's what I went and did. But for your typical student, we have about 1,000 applicants every year that apply to our apprenticeship program. They're going to have to complete an aptitude test, which is over reading comprehension and math, and then they're going to have to sit through an interview process to get selected. With the track test, that cuts all of that out. When we know a student is committed for 2 years and they want to be in this industry, and not only they pass the track program, but then they complete the track test or pass the track test, we're going to give those guys direct entry. I know last year we signed 1 student. This year we signed 2. I don't know how big this will grow, but for the past 2 years, every student that completes the track program, we actually buy their tools for them. So they're getting into the trade, guaranteed a seat. They don't have to spend any money. Since we're accredited school, they actually also get to use their keys money for work boots, anything on the job site they're going to need, a laptop to attend school. It's a great program. The other thing with the track program is that we're going to give them credit, 1,000 on-the-job training hours. So for an average Joe off the street, they're going to start my apprenticeship at $18.94 an hour. Just because you complete the track course, you're going to come in making $19.89 an hour. And like I said, you're not going to compete with those other 1,000 people on the street. You're guaranteed a seat. This upcoming school year, in August, our school starts. We're going to have 125 students. So to think that those kids are getting a seat out of 1,000 with 125 openings, that's pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we can keep the relationship going. Do you guys have any questions about our apprenticeship?
No, I just want to thank you for partnering with Nelson County Schools and offering students of Nelson County a seat at the table. I think it speaks volumes to the work that's going on inside this building for sure.
Well, one of the great things about the apprenticeship too is I'm not knocking ECTC, but you know, those students go there and they graduate and that's it. You get a certificate, you get a piece of paper. With our program, we're going to give them a job, a place of employment day 1. And then after 4 years, they're going to graduate not only with their state electrical license, but they'll have an associate's degree in applied science through Ivy Tech. I know I saw it on the board earlier, but currently my journeymen are making $37.89 an hour. But the students that we signed this year, they're going to graduate making $47.88 an hour. And that's not counting the 25% defined contribution into their 401k plan. Plus, they still receive a pension, which is unheard of nowadays. So it's a great opportunity for any kid in the county.
You said there was 1,000 students that apply. How many did you say make it?
We roughly have 1,000 apply each year. Last year we took 225. I believe this year we're taking 125 in Louisville. We're going to take an additional 50 in the Lexington area. And then we're going to take, this is our first year, we just created a school in Bowling Green. We're going to take 6 students in the Bowling Green area.
Pretty great, thank you.
Right now we're at 700 apprentices.
How many dropouts?
So really we do encounter a lot of dropouts, and we don't have the information back with the track test because this is kind of coming off the ground. Traditionally in the past it's ran between 35 and 50% in the first year. If we get somebody in the door and they make it past the first year of school, pretty much all of them top out.
But you don't have a comparison whether those are off the street versus the track?
Not yet.
Yeah.
That's something that we're working with Mary Taylor at the state level to try to keep track of all that. But we feel pretty confident
You'll see a
that
decrease.
I think they just released that. I've actually texted her. Right into the place. There's a drastic.
okay.
So I can give you that.
Yeah.
She talks to Mary more than I do.
Okay. It's usually personal reasons, or are we taking a guess here, or is it financial, or
Reasons for what?
dropouts?
In the first year?
Or they just can't handle the pressure, or?
I think there's a couple reasons to that. One is they don't think our school is going to be a traditional school, which, yes, our students only go to school 1 day every 2 weeks, but they do go for 8 hours. And you do have a heavy homework load. The other thing is this lab is very nice, but it's air conditioned, it's heat in the winter. A lot of these young people get out there and they realize construction isn't always air conditioned, it's not always heat. I know a lot of times when I'm in here at the high schools and I'm speaking to students, they ask me, they go, well, where's the worst place you've ever worked at? I always tell them, I go, MSD. Do you know what that stands for? I said, there's a pump at the bottom of that pit. An electrician has to change it out. So I think when they get in the workforce, they just don't realize that. Or they decide, this isn't what I want to do. I want to go to a traditional college and apply my skills somewhere else.
Okay, that's being honest. Yeah.
But that's why we have such a heavy dropout rate just in the first year.
Okay.
Not
Thank
easy
you.
profession.
Thank you very much.
Not easy.
No, it's not easy.
There's easier jobs out there. That's a good paying job. So, I mean, good work ethic. It's a good job.
Yes, very good career.
Thank you.
It's been a blessing for me. Any other questions?
I just want to celebrate Mr. Downs, first-year teacher. To speak about the work like you do is uncommon. To, I think, be led with purpose in that role. You really are a hometown hero for many of these kids, and will continue to be. Your services with our schools and our community, not only did you get great results, but you did it with a great attitude, and you're collaborating with the community in a way that's really a model for others. So we're grateful for your leadership. And Mr. Santori, part of our work is uniting people, place, purpose, and to empower lives. Students in this pathway are definitely graduating empowered. And you speak with conviction about that work, and we're very fortunate to have you partnering with us as well. So thank you guys for your courage to lead young people.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
all
you
so
very
much.
much.
If anybody wants any information as well, I brought a bunch of stuff, wage sheets, apprentice information, and then if anybody at the school board's interested, we do have an open house this Friday. I forgot to bring that up, but it's doors open at 8:30. The tour starts at 9 o'clock, but if you guys would actually like to come see our facilities, you guys are more than welcome.
It's worth a visit. I went last year. It's very cool.
All right. Ms. Tucker? Yes.
We'll keep the celebrations going. So, when I think about the wonderful work that's happening across Nelson County schools, when we think about education, we think about all the work that's happening in profession-based experiences, we can also think about the mental health of our students. So when we talk about the Thrive team, we're really talking about the mental health services that we offer in this district that I'm so happy to announce that is celebrated not only across the state, as we will be presenting tomorrow for the Kentucky Department of Education, but also in the nation. We have schools and communities across the nation that are reaching out to the Nelson County schools to say, how are you operating a well-oiled, fully functioning mental health clinic? And what does that look like? How are you doing that? I'm so excited to kick off the celebration because it's really about uniting the right people in the right places to make sure that we have a very impactful service. And because of Stacey Hoderman, I'll introduce her as our Director of Mental Health. We are making leaps and bounds and huge ripples across the state and nation as we think about the mental health services for students in the Nelson County schools. So, Stacey Hoderman.
You. So good to be with you all tonight and really to talk about the Thrive Center, as many of you already know it. We are doing a lot of work, and I've been here for about a year and a half, and you can look at that first slide. I got busy really fast and brought a lot of good people on board, but I think the most exciting thing for me at this point in my career is this is an unusual team. They come to us and have a lot of experience and expertise. So if I had to really market that team, I would say that they have expertise in trauma. And it's just incredible to work with such a wonderful, experienced team. So we have 7 qualified mental health providers who are licensed to practice in the state of Kentucky. And we were able to get them during the time when there's a shortage of mental health providers. And they chose Nelson County Schools, and they are loving the work that they're doing every day. We also have a person who is a trained board-certified behavior analyst, and she's doing behavior consultant work across the district. And we have a board-certified music therapist. So they are really making a big impact across the district. and I'll talk with you just for a few minutes about our priorities. So when you think about what a fully functioning mental health clinic would do in a school district, it's pretty incredible work. When I came on board, I had to get started and build systems, and fortunately, I had built these systems before. So starting with referral systems so that we can identify who really needs that level of support. When I talk about support, sometimes I think we might even get confused. I should probably just call it treatment. Who needs that level of treatment and care, not just support? And so when we look at our numbers just from this school year alone, we had 357 referrals for clinical services. That's a big number, but it's an even bigger number when you consider that we don't only treat the student, we work with their entire family, that parent or guardian, and that is essential. So, that would fill up a gymnasium. A lot of good people come into us and needing some assistance, and we've been able to help a lot of people. So that's fantastic. We try to track all of this data. That's so important that we know how many people that we are impacting. And so when I broke the data down, it looks like 2,000 plus therapy sessions happened in our school across the district. It looks like 150 behavioral supports. And if anything, our numbers are even greater than this. Behavioral supports are very time intensive. So you're working with teachers and you're working with parents and you're working with that child and you're really trying to improve functioning again. Our music therapist does all of her work in groups, and those are psychoeducational groups, and she's serving in elementary schools. I say that it's wonderful. She leaves magic behind everywhere she goes, and there have been 1,800 contacts doing that type of psychoeducational work. So the school-based mental health services are alive and well, and Ms. Tucker's correct. People are calling and asking, how are we doing it, and how did you build a system like this? And so I'm just excited to be able to share that across the state. The rippling effect from that is that we have more resilient, emotionally strong students, schools, and it ripples into the community as well. We are doing a lot of training. So the team that I talked about, I call them the dream team often. But they are certified to provide a lot of trainings. So today I was at KDE and schools were talking about bringing in trainers and doing things in their schools. And, I'm just sitting there smiling because we have a team who works in our schools who are certified to do all the training. You already pay us. We work for Nelson County Schools and we're offering these trainings. So we do trauma-informed care work, we do suicide prevention work, we do substance use work. We really get in and do the training that schools need. We also do a lot of consultative work with our school leaders, administrators, consultative work with our parents as well. So that's another priority for the Thrive Center. And then lastly, I had the opportunity this year to really take a good up-close personal look at our academy. And when you look at our academy and the students that we're serving, they have a variety of different kinds of needs. And so I was able to lead in this area and move us from more of an alternative type of placement to a therapeutic model where we start to figure out what do they need, how do we support them, and how do we really help to get to the root of some of the problems so that they can function better. And so I was at KDE today at a conference. Tomorrow I'll be presenting on how to create therapeutic programs, but it's even more exciting right here at home. And I'll have Mr. Jones come up. He is the new Thrive Academy director. We're going to be able to do really great things with students who need extra support, treatment. We're going to be able to do just really good work to help students improve functioning, transition back into their local environments, and that's just super exciting. So Mr. Jones has been a leader at the Academy for several years, but we are certainly excited about his leadership at Thrive Academy. So I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you so much. Just to start, I'm super excited to take over this role as the director of the Thrive Academy. I know Ms. Holderman and her team, it's been a big task this year. We've kind of piloted this in a couple different classroom settings. We've seen great results. We've put our heads down and we've planned a lot for the future to see what we could do to meet these kids where they are. And that's one of my big goals going into this. You know, it's every student every day. They come in with something different every day. We don't know where they're at. So one of our big goals is to meet them where they're at, figure out what's going on, and then we get into the academic side of things. You know, traditionally, the academy was kind of a sit and get program. They were on a computer-based program throughout the day, you know, and we tutored and helped and guided students that way. This coming up year, we've got the vision of, you can see the student benefits here of every student has an individualized support team. That could be the therapeutic side, that could be through the teachers and the tutoring part of that as well. And then their students are seen, heard, known, and respected. You know, a lot of the times we get students that feel like they're not heard, they're not seen. So we want to meet them where they're at and figure out how we can help provide that opportunity for them to move forward. Each student has a phased approach to growth and success, and that's going to look like a 3-phased approach, which they'll start in one, and they'll have to meet a certain percentage of each goal that they have, and they'll continue to work through those, and that could last anywhere from 45 days to 3 months, depending on how long they want to do the program and how long we can help them get on the right track with that. And as I said before, the academic part, students will have a learning opportunity through specially designed instruction. We're going to have teachers that are actually teaching. We'll be doing ELA, math, reading, science, hands-on activities. You know, we want them up, moving around, keeping them engaged, because that obviously, you know, that's where they struggle coming to us. So that's where we want them. We want them hands-on, getting that engagement part of it. And some of the signals that I'll walk you guys through. We're going to look at like percent of students who have one Thrive Academy staff they can count on. You know, like I said earlier, some of these kids think that they're not seen, they're not heard. So we want them to know that they are heard and seen, and that's one way we're going to measure that. We'll also look at percent of students making progress through the phase system that I just talked about, and then percent of students that are engaged in their personalized support plan. And Ms. Holderman hit on that a little bit earlier. The family is going to be involved with this. Their therapist is going to be involved with this. Ms. Holderman and myself will have conversations weekly through therapeutic team meetings, and we'll meet the kid where they're at with that. And finally, just one of our big things, and these are kind of the names of the phases as well, is going to be rebuild, restore, and reconnect, and that's how we're going to approach that side of it. You guys have any questions for either one of us on that?
I'm just going to say, this is the kind of stuff that warms my heart, because I hear so many great things about what Ms. Holderman has done for just our schools and our students. But seeing this approach of meeting their mental needs, meeting their emotional needs and their behavioral needs, we have to do that first to get everything, to remove those obstacles so that they can learn and be part of the experience that we want them to have. I'm excited for what you guys are doing, and I can't wait to hear more about it and see the work and what you guys are doing. I'm excited.
We're definitely excited about the future. I know like I said, we piloted we had 2 kids go through this year in a way, and we saw great success with those kids coming out and rejoining their local schools. So that was a big win for us, or big win for them, not even us.
It's a big win.
I was going to say it's a big win for everybody involved.
It is.
On average, how many students y'all usually keep in the building?
Well, the projected model coming up this year, we're going to have 2 middle school rooms. They'll have 6 kids, 7 to 8 max, depending. And then our 2 high school rooms will have the same amount. So we'll be running 24 to 25 kids through that part. Now, with that, we'll house in-school suspension and the 45-day room in a separate part of the building, because we want that negative, punitive part kind of separated.
Right.
And we started that this year as well. We moved those guys to the central office basement, and we saw good success with that. Just the attitudes of the positivity in our building in a way.
Yeah, the needs are different.
Yep, very.
You have to recognize that.
Very different.
Okay, the big thing for me is to involve the families. That's the big part for me. It's just not the kids, because the kids, most kids, hide it from their parents, or their parents don't exactly get it, because older parents don't get it as much as younger ones. So I appreciate that aspect of the whole program. Is you've got to know, your parents have to know, your family has to, brothers, sisters, doesn't make any difference. They've got to understand that there is a problem and what to do and what to help that child, that student too. I appreciate that.
I'm so excited. Last week I was working and I was at our academy building and I could hear all the activity, people coming in and out. And every time it was a therapist coming in, it was the whole family, and it was, and that's what I've seen all school year. You really can't treat and work with a minor aside from their family. And you've got to do the work. We're just so blessed in this district to have the means and the resources. This is where schools are today. They are trying to figure out, what do we do and how do we do this, and we are ahead of the game. So I'm just excited to be here and excited about the progress students are making, and would welcome conversations with you all as well further, because it's really great for you all also to make an impact.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on. Social media is a killer as far as a lot of this stuff. But I just appreciate the thought that you have to encompass everyone in this, not just this and this one, but grandparents too. I mean, especially if they see them very often, and they usually go to mama's or daddy's and say, what's wrong with them? What's wrong with her? What's wrong with him? I just appreciate the factor that you do factor in the families, and I like that part. Just as important.
And so logistically, you guys are located at the academy, is that right?
And logistically, the Thrive Center providers are in all the schools.
Okay, well, that was my next.
We are working in, my team is working in all the schools, and so we have people in our elementary, middle, and high schools. We are moving and shaking a lot because there are needs across the entire district.
Gotcha.
Her team is in the building a lot too. I mean, most of our kids know most of the therapists that come through that, or even if they're not, because they're that good. They care about all the kids. They really do.
Awesome. So who's overseeing the children that are in the basement at the board?
It still ran under our program, so I'll still be in charge of that. But we'll have an ISS teacher and the 45-day teacher in there as well, plus a couple instructional assistants that cover and do things with them.
Gotcha.
So it still ran under us at Thrive Academy. It's just a different approach. And we're actually going to start piloting some of this in the near future as well, meeting where they're at with that to help that need up front.
Great.
This is awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 4, guest comments. Thank you all for attending the school board meeting. Any person wishing to address the board may do so by following rules. Individuals representing themselves have 3 minutes. If you're representing a group, you're limited to 5 minutes. Step forward, state your name and address. And if you represent a group, state the name of the group you're representing. And then we have public criticism of individual staff members or individual board members is prohibited, since no individual board member may act on behalf of the board. Concerns about board's actions should be directed to the board as a whole. So Superintendent Bradley gave me the list of individuals. It's a pretty short list tonight. I think the first one was Tom Hibbs. Mr. Hibbs. Okay. All right. Tiffany Clark. Ms. Clark. You were on the list.
So the rules say that you have to do it the day before. It was this morning, so I didn't read that.
Okay, so those were the only 2 on the list, I think. And we're actually working on the policy tonight. So, yes. I mean, if you want to get up and speak, you can. But if you don't feel prepared tonight, we can get you next month. Okay? Okay. All right, moving on. Okay. The monthly consent agenda. All right, we have various things on here. Superintendent Bradley, are there things you'd like to go over specifically?
No.
If not, we good? All right. Do I have a motion to accept the consent item agendas A through I?
I make a motion.
Okay. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, moving on to personnel notifications. We acknowledge receipt of personnel notifications. No action is required on this one. So, moving on, data security presentation, Mr. Aaron Smith.
All right, so it's our annual data security presentation. It's a KDE requirement that we go before the board every year before August 31st, just to present that we have reviewed and are aware of the data breach and security best practices guide that KDE puts out. There's the information on the regulation on that. We've also got the links to that documentation in this slide deck if you all would like to just kind of see how that is written. In any event of a data breach or a situation like that, if it ever occurred here, we would refer to this documentation for the procedures to handle that. As part of the, we have a pretty good security posture here in the district from a data security perspective. We just wanted to show some statistics and data that from our systems that kind of shows where we're at. One of the most common ways that data gets compromised or systems get compromised is through email scams. I think about 88% of cybersecurity instances start from a email instance, a phish or malware that was included in an email message. And so we do active email simulated phishing campaigns to kind of imitate what a cybersecurity or a bad actor would try to do themselves. And so you can see this data that it's actually pretty good. It's actually continued to trend down for us. We do a monthly phish, and it's completely random. The good thing about this, it's not meant to shame anybody. It's completely a training campaign because you see the real thing that bad actors are actually doing out in the wild. If somebody accidentally clicks on one of these or does something that could have compromised a system, they get enrolled in a training campaign. So we have active training that's on top of that. And you can actually see, and I will point out on this graph here, you'll actually see in recent months the number trended up just slightly. We actually made a slight change and actually increased the difficulty just slightly on those campaigns. And so you will see the purple line there is the industry average. So we're well below the industry average for phishing. So it speaks well for our staff and the users in our environment. I included this report last year whenever I did the presentation. So I just updated it with the 2024 statistics. So this is from Checkpoint Security. They are a major security vendor, firewall vendor that does, they work globally. So they're a very good place to go and see these statistics. And you'll see that education and research are among the top targeted institutions for cybersecurity attacks. Some of that is just because, cost, personnel, it's kind of an easy target for a lot of cyber security or bad actors. And I actually grabbed that quote out of that report, which is linked at the bottom too, if that's something you all are interested in. Grab that quote that the average educational institution is hit with an attack over 2,000 times a week. So it's definitely out there. We monitor logs, we keep track of our systems, and we definitely see people that try to log into accounts all the time. If you see somebody log in a whole bunch from Russia, that it's probably not somebody from our school. But the great thing is, our systems are configured to prevent that stuff, and and we're in a good place. You'll see how I referred to emails being the number one mechanism for cyber attacks, and this is just another chart from that report that shows how that has increased. Over the years, bad actors have continued to use email as a vector for getting into systems, getting into organizations. And so this slide in the end is this is some of the systems that we have configured. It's not everything, but it's a pretty good list of a lot of policies and a lot of things we have in place to prevent a cybersecurity threat. There's a lot. Before training is a great thing because cybersecurity is really it's a layered approach. Really, the best thing is for your end users to be trained. But there's a lot of technical approaches that we can take as well to make sure that we are preventing any accidental sharing of data, to make sure that our systems are not susceptible to a lot of the most common attacks. So I will add on there at the end of the last one that we, I added that last one today, the vulnerability scanning. This summer we'll actually be starting a external vulnerability scan. So we'll actually have a company it's actually a government agency that does this for public institutions and stuff. It's a free scan, and they'll actually audit our systems from basically the vantage point that a bad actor out in the wild might have. So that'll give us some good data and just help us to ensure that our systems are configured and secure. So any questions?
Thank you.
I just appreciate y'all doing it.
We've been getting a lot of clicks up from a spot near Chaplin as well. A lot of logins going on there.
Really? I wouldn't even be able to log into mine. I mean,
I don't know what to ask to know whether we're being secure or not. I mean, I don't understand it all. I'm just glad you're doing your job.
Yes. Keep it up.
yeah, doing amazing.
Good work.
Good job.
So I just want to say too, Ms. Holderman and Mr. Jones just presented on the work at the Thrive Center. Great people doing great work. Our technology team, they are behind the scenes doing work that few of us notice until it doesn't work. But if you were to ask Jesse Morgan, would you trade your technology team for anybody in the state of Kentucky? It's a quick no. We're very fortunate to be able to recruit and retain some very talented team members in our technology team. Similarly, with the team at Thrive, and Aaron Smith is one of those people who is a very humble but very talented team member that chose to come to Nelson County over the past few years and is contributing a lot to making our system much more effective and efficient. That goes all the way from human resources to the classroom. Automation, in addition to cost savings mechanisms. If you were to ask anybody in the district office about the impact of Aaron on our ecosystem, is a very high return. So we're grateful for Aaron and the whole team. And while we could get hacked tomorrow and they could be like, the reality, I'd say we are as prepared as anybody, and we have as an intelligent of a team as anybody. So thank you guys for the work you do.
How often do you run tests on board members?
Once
I
a
get
month.
a suspicious email every now and then. I was like,
Once a month.
Yeah, I get it about once a month. So.
Same
Yeah,
as
but
everybody
last
else.
time I had to take that test twice.
I don't think I've ever had to
I
take the
appreciate it.
test.
Yep.
It's coming.
Yep. It's
I'll
completely
do it now.
random. It's,
I do it twice.
but thank you for your kind words. I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
so much.
Thank you very much for your help.
Okay, moving on
I'll get it
to
sent to me now.
item C, annual memorandums of agreement. We got a lot of these. Ms. Tucker? Yeah. We got a big old list.
So the good thing about all of these memorandums of agreement are just annual processes that we go to. Just like the Thrive Center, we have lots of internal supports for our students and families, but we also know that we're always going to need the partnerships of our community partners to continue to spread services and supports for our students. So this is just an annual process that allows us in the summer, at the end of the school year, to connect with each of these partners that we have to see if there's any changes that need to be made, if there's any that we need to add, if there's any that we need to no longer have. So these are just annual contracts and partnerships that we have as MOAs for us to continue to support our students.
Right.
Well, I do have one question. I kind of went through most of them.
Sure.
This one sort of goes back to March. The one on Columbia Southern University,
Sure.
probably more to Ms. Deaton than anybody, because I think while normally you or Ms. Arnold are the ones that are bringing this MOAs to us, this one was brought to from Ms. Deaton. So I wanted to hear more about what it is about this university, because it is not in the state of Kentucky. Is it offerings? And again, I'm all for bringing more opportunities to our kids, don't get me wrong. But
So this one, just so you know, I received a request for this and sent it to our attorney and had him look over it. And he went through a really detailed process of contacting KDE,
Right.
making sure it fit all the I mean, I think it's good to have an option. Now, when students choose, I mean, you know, for some of these, there may be, and I think Ms. Arnold has mentioned, there may be a cost associated with doing an out-of-state because there's not funds available. And so, you know, this one may not appeal to every student, but it's an opportunity, maybe if there's a course that's not offered at ECTC or something, so I don't think it
If
harms.
there's one kid, I say, let's do it.
Yeah,
As long as it's
yeah.
not a cost to the
So
district.
currently, we have gen ed classes that are offered. Is this one offering something unique?
No, I think it's just another opportunity to connect students with other classes. I mean, having a student who's taking classes at ECTC, you know, sometimes it's a challenge to get the class you need in the semester needed.
And
So
is the
I think
cost comparable? Like,
well, and maybe Ms. Arnold can speak to that. It's my understanding that there would be an out-of-pocket cost to the student, so they would have to, we'd need an acknowledgement of that before we did that, because we wouldn't want anybody undertaking an obligation and not being aware of the cost.
Yeah, so, I inserted the cost is $43 per credit hour, that is
versus,
versus Kentucky dual credit cost, the dual credit state improvement, which is through legislation. It has to be half of whatever the KCS rate is that. So last year's KCS rate, I believe, was
$93.
Also with Kentucky schools, if they fall under the agreement, they also have access to dual credit scholarships.
For this university.
Well, isn't it like, let's say, private schools in Kentucky? It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to accept anything that a student brings forth anyway. Like if a student goes to Center or Transy or any of them, they don't have to take, it's just
Well,
like
and this
any
one
other,
is, it's my understanding, this is regionally accredited, which is comparable to the other MOAs, or the other agreements that we have. So, I mean, you know, any student that maybe chooses Columbia Southern needs to be, you know, we would have to make sure that they're aware, and I'm sure the counselors would do a good job of explaining this could have a cost, whereas maybe if it's available somewhere else. But I think it's a tool in our toolbox of options to offer students, so I'm all for going with it.
yeah, I'm game.
As long as we know that it's almost, well, more than double the cost.
For the student.
For the student.
Yeah, for the families, yeah.
It's not
private-
costing the district,
private
it doesn't make
schools
a
are
difference.
double.
Yeah.
Well, this is a for-profit
that I'm
school,
sure
right?
are going to be more than.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, as long as we're on the same page.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments about any of these MOAs?
I guess it does beg the question, at what point do we establish criteria for dual credit? Because it does appear to be a slippery slope where we could potentially allow for any university. And I think this is more of a question for Ms. Arnold and I to think through and maybe make recommendations to the board. This one in particular is, you know, it's given us some good questions to consider.
What stops any parent from bringing a university to the table? I mean, like, are we good with MOAs?
I guess currently the board of
Okay. And there's no conflict of interest if a parent is bringing it to the table? Okay.
when you talk about criteria for dual credit, I do think that's why legislation plays it is what strengths around transferable credit. What was happening in college credit, parents paying for it, nowhere because so this agreement has put private, private, public in the state. So parents and students is very clear understanding that where these credits go.
Well, and I understand that as being the director of post-secondary education, you sort of are the one that brings these MOAs typically to us for approval because you guys are vetting them and making sure that all of those things meet the criteria for our students. So I think that was what was sort of the biggest concern for me is it was sort of just, you know, I've got email after email of the conversations that were being had over this one MOA that wasn't from the director of post-secondary education. So it was just, again, a big red flag for me.
Well, ultimately, this was, our attorney looked at it, and I think he looked at it and
Yeah, I
made sure
talked to him.
through the various, entities that it was in fact legit and something that we can enter into. So with that in mind, do we?
I have another something.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. What is Newland Group?
Newland Group, we use them for speech service.
Okay. Because I'm just going over some of these. What is NCATC?
So that's the Nelson County Area Technology Center.
Yes.
So that is the agreement large through that one. Access.
Okay. Let's see, what else? I think that covered it. That's something I knew, but I knew the NCATC, but I didn't know if that's what we called it, because before we just called it Bardstown, county.
What about the academy? Our academy, is that accredited also, or no? Like,
Not sure, does that relate to this, or is that,
well, I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
when you say is it accredited, you mean it's like a SACS accredited school?
I guess.
It meets all the requirements of the Kentucky Department of Education for a student to graduate from it, yes, so it would be.
But would it be accepted in a college, or no?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the annual MOA update as presented?
I'll make
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we got a motion. How about?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, annual policy and procedure update. Ms. Hogan.
So this is another thing that I have a question about. I had emailed yesterday to the board chair and about asking about one of the policies to be removed from this broad approval because it's about public comments and guest comments. And because we already know this has been a big controversy across the district, I had asked for that to sort of be separated from this broad approval of this first reading. I did not hear back from the board chair on that. So I'm going to ask the board to remove that from this first reading. It can still be a first reading for tonight, but I think it deserves more discussion than just a reading.
And which part are we talking about?
So I think there's some challenges in this, in the 01.421, the public participation in open meetings policy. We're removing, or adding, actually, we're adding quite a bit, which is the statement that you started reading last year that's from the Kentucky Board of Education, I believe.
School Board Association?
Yeah. Because those people they're not elected, they're appointed, so I could sort of see protecting them somewhat in the conversation. There's, in my opinion, this could be challenged from people coming up here and speaking and having an opinion. That's again the reason why limiting them to what they can say.
Wow. To me, this is not a character assassination meeting. This is to be discussed about education or anything on the agenda. And when you sit up here, or anybody else sits here and bashes one of the members, that's where it's got to stop, and that's the only way to stop it. Now, I know you see it differently, but this is the way I see it, because you weren't bashed for 2 years. And that's the only thing I'm saying, is that's not right. That it doesn't have anything, if you want the clarity of what you're supposed to talk about, you need to reach for the State Department, because they'll tell you, it tells you in one of the, if I'm correct, you're only supposed to talk about even subjects that's on the agenda. And when you stand here and talk about everybody, or all of us, or one of us at a time, that's not talking about anything on the agenda. That's talking about somebody personally that you don't know. And accusing somebody of doing something that you don't know, if it's true or not. Because it's all hearsay, or it's all, whatever. If somebody doesn't like the way we have voted, or if you vote, you're the enemy. You're the ugly person.
And
and that is not right. That's not right.
This is a policy that, and Diane took the lead in pursuing this. it needed to be changed anyway because we were not following, it's never a good thing when you're not following your own policy. And there were certain things in here, it said at least 15 minutes, and we've kind of made it a rule to do the 30 minutes. It said in here that you had to sign up 48 hours beforehand. And of course, we weren't following that. And that is fine. I think the way we were signing up is fine. But we want to make sure that the policy reflects what we're doing. We've been using the Google Doc or whatever. So that language was eliminated. There's nothing that would prevent people from criticizing the board as a whole. But I think the productivity of the meeting is compromised at a certain point when it just becomes that. So y'all can criticize all you want. That's open. But just the personal character assassinations, I don't think that really accomplishes a whole lot.
No.
Well, again, my bringing this to the table isn't necessarily about allowing it to be an open mic of criticism.
Are you sure?
We have had open mics of criticism since 21, if I remember correctly.
And that was wrong
So
then.
It was wrong then,
So
it's wrong
again-
now.
Well,
so again,
this doesn't stop criticism, Tracy.
I never said it was about criticism. What I'm saying is this board has actively tried to silence the community of Nelson County.
You're wrong.
And it is continuing to actively do that with this policy.
You're wrong.
Well, and this is a policy that's up for proposal, and, we can take a vote on this policy just like we take a vote on the other ones. Policies are always open to reconsider at a later time. If it needs to be changed, it could be changed by the majority of the board, but.
I guess the original question was, do we?
Yes,
take it
I
out?
wanted it removed from this broad approval of the first reading.
Well,
I
let's take a
disagree.
vote on it.
I mean, are you making a motion to
I
have?
make
it
a
removed?
motion to remove it from the broad approval so it can be further discussed.
Okay, do we have a second? Tracy has a motion. Do we have a second to that motion? Okay, so that motion fails. Okay, so now looking at all these other policies, are there any other policies that you all feel you'd like to flesh out a little bit?
So we will read through, we have to read through.
Oh, we
it.
can,
Yeah.
What's the most efficient way?
Bear with me,
Oh,
I'm gonna just.
Go for it.
You
I'm
must-
so glad.
Because we have to do that. So
Okay, perfect.
every year at the end of May, KSBA sends these to us. We go through and review them with our policies. Sometimes we make a wording change or something like that, but we are required to read them twice. So we will do it this month and again next month. So
Okay.
I'm gonna look down at the paper and try
Go
to
for
go
it.
through it, and if you all have questions or want
Okay.
to stop me, feel free to do that.
Okay.
Okay. 01.11, general powers and duties of the board, recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to 702 KAR 3:330, requiring the district to provide certified employees liability insurance. 01.111, district planning, KSBA recommended legal change in response to Senate Bill 2 and House Bill 6, requiring the trauma-informed approach and displaying the summative assessment on the website. 01.2, board member qualifications, recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to House Bill 449, that amends KRS 160.180 to clarify eligibility for membership on the board. 01.3, board vacancy, recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to House Bill 449 and House Bill 580 regarding eligibility for membership on the board and clarification of timelines when filling an unexpired term. 01.421, public participation in open meetings, recommended by the Nelson County Board, language added regarding the time dedicated to public comments as well as the content. 01.83, in-service training, recommended by KSBA, legal change to reflect amendments to House Bill 449 and KRS 160.180 to allow for greater flexibility in topics available for board member training. 02.31, school resource officers, recommended by KSBA, legal changes in response to Senate Bill 2, which amends KRS 158.441 and KRS 158.4414, which updates the definition of an SRO and allows greater flexibility in hiring. 02.311, Kentucky Guardians, recommended by KSBA, 02.442, Comprehensive School Improvement Plan recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to House Bill 6 requiring school districts to display the summative assessment on the website. 03.11, hiring, KSBA and HR recommendations. Legal change in response to House Bill 278, which amends KRS 160.380, providing clarification on background check result requirements, addition of language referencing current district practices on verifying previous employment. 03.124, insurance, recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to 702 KAR 3:330, requiring the district providing certified employees liability insurance. 03.13251, drug-free, alcohol-free schools, recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to House Bill 5, which amends KRS 158.155, requiring school employees to report certain crimes to law enforcement. 03.21, hiring, KSBA and HR recommendations. Legal change in response to House Bill 278, which amends KRS 160.380, providing clarification on background check result requirements and addition of language referencing current district practices on verifying previous employment. 03.23251, drug-free alcohol schools, KSBA recommendation, legal change in response to House Bill 5, which amends KRS 158.155, requiring school employees to report certain crimes to law enforcement. 04.31, authority to encumber and expend funds, recommended by finance, restriction on authorized amount to tip when using the district credit card. 04.5, revenue bonds, recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to House Bill 727, which creates a new section of KRS 162, which allows flexibility for the issuing of revenue bonds. 05.4, safety, recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to Senate Bill 2, House Bill 169, and House Bill 148, which amends KRS 158.162 and KRS 158.148 pertaining to school mapping data, the supply of AEDs, and revised language. 06.22, bus driver rights and responsibilities, recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to House Bill 446, which amends KRS 158.110 to require local districts to develop a transportation service policy that reflects state guidelines. 06.31, bus scheduling and routing, recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to House Bill 447, which updates guidelines on non-school bus vehicles for student transportation. 06.33, regular bus stops, recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to House Bill 446, which amends KRS 158.110 to require local districts to develop a transportation services policy that reflects state guidelines. 06.34, conduct on the bus, recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to House Bill 446, which amends KRS 158.110 to require local districts to develop a transportation services policy that reflects state guidelines. 08.12, instructional organization, that was recommended by HR. It's just a small language change that was related to preschool being in a centralized location. 08.113, graduation requirement, recommended by the Nelson County Board, added language to allow middle school students to retake high school course and replace.
I have a question on this one. So it says a student may select to retake a high school course that was taken during a middle school through a localized approval process. This will remove the course from the official transcript, replacing the course with a new high school course with approval of the high school principal. So is that saying that if a middle school student takes a high school credit and they don't like their grade, and then they get to high school, they can have that wiped clean?
That's what it is.
And,
That's what it should be.
and I'll tell you why I think that's a good I think that's a good one. I think there's the opportunity for these children in middle school to take these upper level classes and really challenge themselves. But for some students, that also comes with the threat that you're going to, maybe impact your GPA and go into high school already having eliminated the possibility of that. Personally, my son Oliver,
I'm 100% for that.
My son Oliver took algebra in 8th grade, COVID hit, he got a B. It was very important to him to have a 4.0, and so he was able to retake it and got an A and replaced that grade. I just think it's a good
I
option.
think it's going to be great for middle school students to actually encourage them to take an upper level class. My only question is, what happens if a high school student doesn't like their grade?
Well, I think it would only apply to middle school, right? Just if you took a class as a middle schooler.
I mean, does it open a Pandora's box though? Because what's to say that I'm going to be an advocate for my high school student, and she didn't do really good in Algebra 2, and I want her to retake Algebra 2, so I'm going to push for a policy that's going to change that. So what keeps us from, how do we close that box once it's open?
I think it says specifically middle school, like it had to be a class.
But what stops it from being high school is what I'm asking.
The policy language says if a student took a class in middle school,
but
that class.
We didn't have that language in there before, and we're adding that language now. So what keeps us from adding that language?
I guess we could take that up if we ever attempted to add it again. I mean, I would never be in favor of that. I feel like once you're in high school, I feel like this just would give kids the incentive to challenge themselves without, the threat of a repercussion. Very few children would probably even want to retake a class if they took it in middle school, but I like the option. But I guess it would have to be presented again on a policy presentation, right, if we change the language.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
Okay. 08.1131, alternative credit options, recommended by Workforce. Post-secondary institutions offering dual credit for Nelson County school students must have signed an MOA with the Nelson County Board. 08.221, grading, recommended by Workforce. Clarify the rates for dual credit courses. 08.23, harmful to minors complaint resolution process, recommended by KSBA. Revision to include the full process for this policy outlined in KRS 158.192. 09.11, school attendance areas, recommended by the DPP. Minor changes to allow for wording alignment. 09.123, absences and excuses, recommended by the DPP. Minor changes to allow for wording alignment. 09.126, students of military families, recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to House Bill 471, which amends KRS 159.075 to allow the use of military orders as proof of residency for student enrollment. 09.14, student records, recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to Senate Bill 11, which amends KRS 610.345 to require notice to schools prior to filing a public offense petition. 09.22, student health and safety, recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to Senate Bill 2, which amends KRS 158.4451 and KRS 156.095 to require districts to create an anonymous reporting tool to supply districts with information community members may be concerned about regarding student health and safety, in addition to evidence-based suicide prevention training for students and staff. 09.2211, employee reports of criminal activity, recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to House Bill 5, which amends KRS 158.155, requiring school employees to report certain crimes to law enforcement. 09.224, emergency medical treatment, recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to House Bill 169, which amends KRS 158.162 to require districts to maintain a portable AED in every school building. 09.2242, medical cannabis, recommended by KSBA. House Bill 829 creates KRS 218B.045, which requires the board to enact a policy to either permit or prohibit the use of medical cannabis by student on school property. 09.226, conduct on school bus, recommended Transportation Services Policy recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to House Bill 446, which amends KRS 158.110 to require local districts to develop a transportation services policy that reflects state guidelines. 09.227, child abuse recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to House Bill 271, which amends KRS 620.030, and Senate Bill 2, which amends KRS 156.095 to clarify reporting methods and training for child abuse and neglect prevention. 09.42, student conduct recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to House Bill 446, which amends KRS 158.110 to require local districts to develop a transportation services policy that reflects state guidelines. 09.422, bullying and hazing recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to House Bill 446, which amends KRS 158.110 to require local districts to develop a transportation services policy that reflects state guidelines. 09.423, use of alcohol, drugs, and other prohibited substances recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to House Bill 5, which amends KRS 158.155, requiring school employees to report certain crimes to law enforcement. 09.4232, tobacco, alternative nicotine, or vapor products recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to House Bill 142, which repealed KRS 438.345 and created a new section of KRS 158 that requires school districts to adopt policies that penalize students for the use of tobacco, alternative nicotine, or vapor products. 09.425, assaults and threats of violence recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to House Bill 5, which amends KRS 158.155, requiring school employees to report certain crimes to law enforcement.
I want to say something on that one. Through KSBA, that was impressed upon us greatly because there's been some incidences in the state that crime, assault against teachers and other students was never reported by the DPP or the superintendent or the principal. So I just want to add that one in there. The reason why that one was changed.
09.43, student disciplinary processes recommended by KSBA. Legal change to reflect Senate Bill 2, which amends KRS 158.4416 to include the definition of a trauma-informed approach plan, which is reviewed annually. 09.435, expulsion recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to House Bill 446, which amends KRS 158.110 to require local districts to develop a transportation services policy that reflects state guidelines. 09.438, Code of Acceptable Behavior and Discipline. Legal change in response to House Bill 446, which amends KRS 158.110 to require local districts to develop a transportation services policy that reflects state guidelines, and legal change in response to House Bill 142, which repealed KRS 438.345 and created a new section of KRS 158 that requires school districts to adopt policies that penalize students for the use of tobacco, alternative nicotine, or vapor products. 01.3A.P21, application for board vacancy recommended by KSBA. House Bill 449 amends KRS 160.180 to expand acceptable documentation for evidencing a candidate's completion of high school. 03.11 AP 242, certified verification of experience recommended by HR, updated to reflect current district practices on verifying previous employment. 03.19 AP 23, district training requirements recommended by KSBA. Legal change in response to Senate Bill 2, which amends KRS 158.4451 to require districts to provide training on an anonymous reporting tool that allows students, parents, and community members to inform districts of concerns. 03.21 AP 242, classified verification of experience recommended by HR, updated to reflect current district practices on verifying previous employment. 04.2 AP 1 depositories recommended by KSBA, legal change to reflect House Bill 449, which amends KRS 160.570, removing the limit of depositories a district may appoint. 06.0 AP1 implementation of systems recommended by KSBA, legal changes in response to House Bill 446, which amends KRS 158.110 to require local districts to develop a transportation services policy that reflects state guidelines. We're almost done.
Breathe. Just breathe.
06.22 AP1 driver's rights and responsibilities recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to House Bill 446, which amends KRS 158.110 to require local districts to develop a transportation services policy that reflects state guidelines. 06.34 AP1 conduct on bus, legal change in response to House Bill 446, which amends KRS 158.110 to require local districts to develop a transportation services policy that reflects state guidelines. 09.12 AP22 non-resident student admissions and enrollment recommended by the DPP, wording alignment and clarification among procedures. 09.14 AP2 juvenile justice agency certification form recommended by KSBA. The administrative offices of the courts has implemented a standard form to be used in place of the existing certification form. 09.2211 AP21 documentation of reporting required by law recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to House Bill 5, which amends KRS 158.155 to require school employees to report certain crimes to law enforcement. 09224 AP1 emergency medical care procedures recommended by Health Services, change in language to include epinephrine in allowance substances to administer. 09.2242 AP2 medical cannabis administration recommended by KSBA. House Bill 829 creates KRS 218B.045, which requires the board to enact a policy to either permit or prohibit the use of medical cannabis by a student or on school property. 09.2261 AP2 Transportation Services Policy Acknowledgement Form recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to House Bill 446, which amends KRS 158.110 to require local districts to develop a transportation services policy that reflects state guidelines. 09.227 AP1 Child Abuse Neglect Dependency recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to House Bill 271 amends KRS 620.030 to allow submission of a written report when reporting child abuse. 09.423 AP1 student drug testing procedures recommended by Health Services due to newly adopted KSBA policy change for 09.423. This procedure can be removed. 09.423 AP2 prohibited substances violation referral form recommended by Health Services due to newly adopted KSBA policy change for 09.423. This procedure can be removed. 09.423 AP21 drug testing consent form recommended by Health Services due to newly adopted KSBA policy change for 09.423. This procedure can be removed. 09.43 AP1 juvenile court records recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to Senate Bill 11, which amends KRS 610.345 to require notice to schools prior to filing a public offense petition. 09.435 AP1 expulsion procedures recommended by KSBA, legal change in response to House Bill 446, which amends KRS
Kim, good job.
Okay, so we haven't voted on this, right? Do we need to do a motion? A motion to approve the first reading of the 24-25 policy and procedure updates as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Okay, I have a motion. All right, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, moving on. The Fidelity bond.
This is really easy after all that.
Good, great.
This is just an annual item. It's basically just insurance that I won't steal from the district.
Okay.
And it's required for all finance officers.
Okay.
It's just an annual item.
All
And
right.
I'm just asking you to please approve it so that we can get it done.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the Fidelity bond?
I make a motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right, motion passes. Okay, middle school scheduling, Mr. Barton and Ms. Arnold.
So we visited with you, I guess it was the April or May board meeting. We talked a little bit about opportunities that could be available to our middle school students. And really, I want to take a few minutes to revisit the purpose of this and why we even had this discussion. So last January, when we decided to bring Boston and New Haven students into OKH, we committed to priorities around middle school connected campus and really focusing on how do we have shared ownership and leadership, how do we create academic success for all, and how do we provide opportunity and access for all middle school students across the district. So with that, we had conversations obviously about our general education programming and what was happening in our gen ed courses, but also thinking about how do we expand college and career exploration? And I think I shared some data with you all during the last meeting about the importance of the middle grades really being a good time for our students to explore. So that brought about our College and Career Connects, really trying to create middle school pathways of purpose to start introducing our middle school students to opportunities that they could advance in when they get into high school, and then also thinking about those post-secondary opportunities. And I think we saw a great example of that tonight when we kicked off our meeting, thinking about all the opportunities within the electrical field here at the Ep Center. So as a part of this conversation, we started working with our middle school counselors, our career and technical education staff, and just our middle school staff across the district to create these pathways and opportunities. Then we had our scheduling events at our middle schools in February and March. And I just want to remind you of the requests that came in for these programs. So keep in mind that most of the College and Career Connects are focused around that 8th grade level as far as those that were going to involve some type of transportation. We did have Ascend, which is the experience at the airport, that was open grades 6 through 8. So I'm mainly focusing on 8th grade data because that's where a majority of the availability was. So at our 8th grades at BMS, 76% of those 8th grade students requested one of these College and Career Connects, and at OKH, 70% of the students, and when we say requested, that was their number one choice for an elective opportunity. So this data is a little more advanced than it was at the May meeting because we were still inputting when I visited with you all in May. So during that May conversation, the board asked for two things. You all asked that we evaluate scheduling for full day Connects programs. So, for example, that means instead of going to the aerospace program every day, what if we had it 1 day a week for students? I think that was one of the examples that you all shared. You also asked that we evaluate rotating teachers to different locations. So what would it look like for Sergeant Faust at the airport to do his morning classes at the airport, then go to Bloomfield Middle School and provide a course, then go to OKH and provide a course. So that's an example of one of the requests that you ask. So Alex Martin and Tara Steele, who is our IC Infinite Campus Genius, is much smarter than I am at that game and helping with master schedule design, we spent some time looking at some options. So we're bringing to you tonight some recommendations, and then Alex and Tara are going to team up and talk a little bit about what was some of the reasoning behind these recommendations, and really what happens as you think about scheduling and a master schedule design. So we had the Ignite. That was the pre-college, early college and career academy. So we had originally recommended that there would be an Ignite at Nelson County High School and an Ignite at Thomas Nelson High School for 8th grade students to be able to get an introduction to high school and have that experience at a little accelerated earlier rate. So we have recommended that Algebra 1 in an advanced English class, that those students would remain at Bloomfield Middle School for that experience. So we would not bus those students to a high school. If they're at Bloomfield, they would stay there. Our other programming being aerospace, JROTC, Ag Club, and Engineering Club, our recommendation is that they continue to be offered at the original locations that we brought to you in May. And here's really 3 big reasons why. First of all, we're leveraging our current resources, that being location. Last I looked, there wasn't an airstrip behind Bloomfield Middle School or OKH. So we're leveraging the airport. We're leveraging the equipment that is at the airport for our students. For example, a flight simulator. It's a pretty large piece of equipment. Being able to transport that back and forth to the airport is a pretty heavy ask. So we're saying use that location from a equipment resource perspective. This also allows OKH students to have access to these programs at the same time, increasing opportunity and access. And I'm going to show you the actual numbers in a few minutes so you can see the number of kids that are asking for this. And then some of these programs, we will have 8th grade and 9th grade students together at times. And this allows us, because Mr. Norman asked this question, which I thought was a great question at the last meeting. He said, is this going to negatively impact our high school offerings? And if you allow these to take place at our originally suggested location, it is not going to impact that high school access. So here's our actual numbers of student requests. So you can actually see the numbers behind those percentages. Aerospace, 200 students, Ignite, 40, JROTC, 24, Ag Lab, 94, and Engineering, 70. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Martin to talk a little bit about when you have all these requests and you talk about how to leverage your resources and teachers, what's involved in that scheduling process.
So first, I'm going to add a little bit of credibility to my conversation. Miss Tara Steele over here. I don't know if we've introduced her at a board meeting before. Tara, you can stand up and come on up here. She really don't want to come up. So this is, you going into year 3 now? I'm losing count. Is this going into year 3 now? Yeah. So our Infinite Campus, I think it's called Student Information Systems Specialist. Really, reminder, Infinite Campus houses a lot of our things that obviously run our schools: attendance, scheduling, grade data, transcript data, transportation data. It's the system that houses all these things. And Tara really leads that process, obviously with the folks at the school level, but she works closely with them. She's brought to this conversation because Tara spent a lot of time in her career working through scheduling. She used to work at JCPS, and she scheduled lots of students at the local high school, really making those schedules come to life. So previously, without her here, we didn't support our counselors very well, to be frank, with helping them with the scheduling process. Tara, we now have her, and she works alongside with them really daily when we think about, especially in the summer months, for making these schedules come to life for August. So I can speak broadly around some of the asks that you guys have, and then Tara obviously understands the fine details of, well, what about this and what about that? So that's why I've asked her to come here today. So one of the requests was thinking about how is it possible to allow a student to attend a course for only one day out of the week? Okay, so broadly speaking, really what runs your building from a scheduling standpoint is your master schedule, and that basically says what teachers do we have and what courses are going to be offered when. So this is just a snapshot this is just on a spreadsheet, but basically it's during first period, these courses are offered, second period, these courses are offered. This is one from a few years ago. And really the way the master schedules run is it's a Monday through Friday kind of synchronous model, right? So what occurs on Monday is the same thing that occurs on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So in other words, for that building, there's one master schedule. And really to make that one master schedule come to life, there are a number of constraints and moving parts that even makes it what it is. So really asking a teacher, well, can you only teach this one group of kids on Friday? What you'd be asking us to do is to build 5 master schedules for that building. For instance, while they have the kids on Friday, what would that teacher do Monday through Thursday? And when the kids are going there on Friday, what does that mean about their other classes that they would take typically, right, on Monday through Thursday? So as you can see, what I'm trying to communicate is that the master schedules are really a occurring weekly, daily thing. And one adjustment really impact, I think, all of our kids from a 612 standpoint. That's why it's listed 2,200 kids' schedules will be impacted. Some of the constraints that make the master schedule come to life, and Tara can speak about these if I'm missing some of it, but essentially buildings are allocated. You only have so many teachers that are even available to offer sections to students. Obviously, their certifications, I can't teach a social studies course because I'm not certified to do that. So they have to align. Obviously, we can't have 50 or 60 kids in a classroom space. Those constraints, typically you're operating around 25 to 30 kids in a 612 classroom setting. Based on individual needs of students and their IEPs and accommodations, most of those require extra service minutes from an additional teacher. We don't have bukus of special education teachers that are able to offer that really in every single period, so those students have to be placed a certain way so we're able to provide those services. One thing we strive to have is our core content teachers really having common planning opportunities so they actually have time and space to work together during the day. Obviously, the students and families have asked for certain requests in Infinite Campus, and we want to try to align those so that kids really get what they want. Obviously, the state has general education requirements where all students need a math, science, social studies, and English. There's also some advanced course opportunities that are not necessarily offered all day because not as many kids want that class, so it really only occurs one time of the day. And then when we think about shared classroom spaces such as the ATC and Collabs, there's lots of constraints there to where they can only be offered certain times of the day. So these are just a few of the constraints that have to be considered to make one master schedule in a building really come to life. And to say that really most of the summer is really spent making these master schedules exist. So I'm not sure, Ms. Steele, if there's anything. Okay.
So, in summary, the shift was students would be at Bloomfield Middle School for Ignite Early College, and the students would be transported to Ascend, ROTC, Ag Collab, and Engineering Collab. The numbers that you have requested here are as follows. On this slide here, 200 students requested Ascend. Ascend is a 9-week program. Due to the demand of that program, students will only be there for 9 weeks. The other programs are listed there. 40 students requested Early College, 24 ROTC, 94 Ag Collab, 70 Engineering Collab. Doesn't mean every one of these students would get their request as currently listed, but these are the current data. So, questions from the board?
I really appreciate you all, like with the Bloomfield, with Ignite, I appreciate you all trying to work out and finding a way to teach algebra and English there. I think it was just
amazing.
I feel like unnecessary busing, and I appreciate that. Like to add on to that, though, it looks like there were 16 students at Bloomfield, if that's right, and there's 24 students at Old Kentucky Home. Like, and I would also, I mean, is there a possibility of the Old Kentucky Home students, there's even more students there being taught in their classroom? I just think to the extent we can limit some of the busing on something that can be provided in a school, I think there's a benefit to that. So can you speak to that, Mr. Martin?
Yeah, I think
someone.
I would say broadly we agree. At the same time, it's these issues here in terms of.
Yeah, let's go back. So first off, in terms of the Ignite, really the vision around that is that students would not just take one course. So when they go to attend the space, right, in this instance, the student may take 3 courses while they're at that high school location. And really it's about exposure to advanced educational opportunities in that setting. Also, I think proximity of OKH in relation to the high school facilities is a different conversation in Bloomfield Middle School. So that busing will be more minimum per se. Also, the amount of busing we have really across those campuses, we'd be able to leverage those transportation busing opportunities that already exist, and that we wouldn't have to create another one, would be the goal there. The other challenge really among staffing is making sure we have enough teachers at Oak Kentucky Home to even staff them there inside that building. So we may say, well, we want those kids to be serviced at OKH, and therefore that demands we need another math teacher, hypothetically speaking. We can post that job, but we may not have a qualified candidate that's able to teach those students. Typically, what we've seen, most candidates at the 6-12 level are more attracted to the high school jobs, and they tend to fill quicker, and more folks tend to be more interested in those. Because they're there, they are highly qualified, they are staffed, it allows us to leverage the personnel that already exists as opposed to trying to find another.
Would you all be willing to pursue the possibility of Ignite being offered, at the local campus? Again, I just think it would simplify somewhat. I mean, is that something you all are open to see?
I mean, it is an option. I guess really what you're trying to weigh is, the kid is not going to be bussed over for one course, right? They're being bussed over for 3 courses that they have a chance to take. So really in this case, they would take a math, an English, and then also an elective that may not exist.
So basically you would just be moving them up to being a freshman instead of an 8th grader, is what I'm hearing.
So I can speak to that. So I think the reason behind Ignite was these are students that are thinking about being a part of a cohort to get their associate's degree prior to graduating high school. So the idea was that they would be exposed to high school experiences and high school credit at an earlier age, because those parents and students are choosing, and I think choosing is the key word, that accelerated opportunity, just like they're choosing to work toward their associate's degree while they're in high school. So really the original intent of the pre-Ignite was to expose
the community
them.
campus that was prior.
No one said a word about community
But
campus.
that's what it sounds like.
You chose to say that. It was to expose kids to the high school experience at an earlier age if parents and students chose to do that.
So will the parents be completely it will be completely, word for word, exactly what their student, their child will be missing in middle school, what they will be experiencing in high school, there'll be a pro, a con, they will understand wholeheartedly what their child will be going through, as far as they are going to understand 100% that their child is going to go to the high school for your 3 classes.
Like in terms of busing, just acknowledge
the whole kit and caboodle, all of it. They're going to be in high school for 3 classes with high schoolers.
So the answer would be yes. They would have to do that.
Perfect.
I think too, if we just
if
look.
the parents are great with it, then.
Just about 25 minutes ago, we also.
I know you gotta be okay. The only way I can go along with this is each parent sign a note that says, my child will miss so many minutes of school. Multiply that times 175 days of school. Now, if you give me a note from the State Department that says they can do that, I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
But until that day comes, I can't say that, because you're telling us that you're going to miss 25, maybe 50 minutes out of the day, or 45 minutes out of the day. And I said again, multiply it times 175 days. You're cheating the kids when they need to be somewhere else or doing something else.
Miss Arnold, I can speak to
Wait
this.
a minute.
I can speak to this.
Wait a minute. When they need to be not on a bus that long to gain an education. I just feel it's cheating them. That's all there is to it. And if I was a parent, I wouldn't like it unless you tell me that you've got permission from the state to do it.
I would love to share this vision with KDE. Like, I'll call them tomorrow if he gives me permission to do that and sit down with them because it's one of the most exciting things I've been a part of. So I'd love to do that. That'd be an honor.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I just want to know that they're okay with you missing so many, when the time is supposed to be so many thousands of minutes that a child is supposed to be educated. And that's all I'm interested in, is how we're educating our students and not, and giving them the full benefit. Not the benefit of getting on a bus and, again, riding from their house to the school, to another school. That's what I want.
So I appreciate that. We recognize the concern about transportation. I think, too, we also recognize the goal, and we've been very fortunate in Nelson County to have great people dreaming big for kids.
Wes, that doesn't have anything to do with the dream. I'm talking about what I want is an okay by the state that says that's okay for these kids to miss that kind of hours in a week, in a year, and multiply those minutes times how many days of school. I just think that's a bigger picture than what we think that a kid should be. That's a whole class period to me, is coming to and from a school.
Let's go back to the big picture about all this. So let's say that same kid, let's say Sean Smith, right here, front row, is an 8th grader at Oak Age. Let's say he chooses not to pursue the early college Ignite program. Let's say he's like, well, it's not offered, so I'm going to take whatever, integrated math, I'm not going to pursue Algebra 1, I'm not going to pursue advanced English classes because it's not offered. And let's say he's in those classes, he's moving along. Normally, he's not terribly challenged as he expected to be. The average amount of time he's wasting in those classes is about 8,000 minutes per class because he's not being challenged. He's not pursuing radical growth. He's not dreaming bigger about his life. You times that by 3, it's about 21,000 minutes. In the same way, I took bowling in high school because that was the only way I could get off campus. So I wasted about 14,000 minutes in bowling, and I became a pretty good bowler.
I use it. You're looking at the same thing. We're not comparing apples to apples.
So I just think we're dreaming bigger for kids.
You're telling a kid.
Were you in high school or middle school when you took bowling?
You're saying if you don't want to go,
we're talking about middle school kids.
Nobody's talking about that. I'm just saying if it's okay for the State Department that you can call the state and get that written up, I'll be more than glad to vote for it.
Yes, we can set up a meeting with KDE. We can go over the vision, share it with them, and get confirmation from them.
That's all I'm asking.
Here's the other thing.
It's a lot of minutes.
So I guess I challenge what role we have in this. Well, I believe that we should have the discussion, and I'm excited to see this all for students to be offered. Of course, you know, site-based and the principals of the school, I would have seen play a much larger role in this probably than we do.
I think I just spent the last 2 days with superintendents across Kentucky. I listened to one of the House leaders in education speak at length about middle school CTE program access and advancing middle school opportunities. The state of Kentucky, for the first time ever in 2024, will begin to fund middle school CTE programs through a waiver process because they have come to recognize that we're late to the party as a state, and we as a district have been trying to be early to the party. Now we're saying welcome to the party to our kids. And we want to continue to build CTE access. The state is now reinforcing that through funding. They chose to do that intentionally because they're seeing the same things we are. Students in middle schools are not empowered to dream big about what's possible even when they're moving into high schools. And that engagement is not where it needs to be, especially for students that struggle. So I share that as a larger context. The state is now telling us these things here, not only are they important, we're going to begin funding them at a accelerated level. Just in the same ways we've increased funding in Nelson County schools by nearly $700,000 over the past 4 or 5 years because of advancements in CTE pathways. That money goes right back into our schools, pays for teachers, and pays for programs. So it's really a win-win for the district, for the board, and for students and families. And we really want to be pioneers on the edge of this. And I think this is a gateway for us to begin to do that work. And we're really proud of the principals, the teachers, and really our families for continuing to see and dream big for the future of our schools.
You're not here, I don't have any problem with that. I'm talking about the transportation part of it. If they were sitting at Bloomfield, it'd be peach, but we don't have that kind of power. We don't have the money, we don't have the, we don't have that possibility.
The resources,
I know that.
whatever.
But what I'm saying is, I'm just concerned about the minutes lost on a daily basis, a monthly basis, or a yearly basis, when the state says you have to have so many minutes per student. Don't read this the wrong way. I'm all for any kind of opportunities we can give our kids.
Yeah, so there's actually a law that allows transportation time to count toward instructional time when it relates to vocational programming. So legally, from a law perspective, JROTC, Ag Collab, Engineering, and Ascend, the time on their bus as far as KDE is concerned is instructional time. And that came about because of the shared vocational centers that started in the 1950s, 1960s. In Pike County, it may take a kid 45 minutes to an hour to get to their nearest vocational center.
Yes.
So I think from that perspective, legally, KDE will be in support, and we can talk through that.
That's all I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
If you'd have said this to begin with, that's all I wanted to hear was the state allows it to happen. And that's what I wanted to hear, was the state allows it to happen. Because you know yourself, Laura, you gotta have so many minutes. Now, I don't wanna be called on, Nelson County, you didn't give your students all the full opportunities or the full minutes that the law says that you have to have a student. So, whatever, that's fine. If that's included in it, transportation, that's fine.
So I don't think this doesn't matter, we have to vote on or anything like
No.
that, so, but I do appreciate.
I do appreciate you all like getting together and working to, I really, really appreciate that. Because I know that took a lot of time. I mean, like you said, changing one student changes.
Yeah.
I do appreciate you all doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you all so
very
much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, the Up Center and Bus Garage. Mr. Martin.
So we also have Ben McClure, Wes Davis here. Ben is the lead design architect on the bus garage and the Up Center, and Wes Davis represents Caudell Construction. Alex will get us started with just some very broad conversations.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to these guys pretty quickly. So really just when you think about timelines on these two facilities, obviously we had our recent groundbreaking ceremonies. Those were great events. Appreciate those that were able to attend. Currently, Caudell Construction is working with the contractors on getting all the contracts signed. It's really a stack of papers, and it's a compliance item that all the boxes have to be checked, really, in order for us to continue with that. We're currently in the process of getting that completed. Our goal is for boots on the ground construction to begin on those projects on June 28th, and then you can see the expected project completion dates. We're also going to spend some time today talking about the New Haven project. I think we're going to have some discussions, and then the architects will speak some as we think about capacity needs, and then we'll be able to evaluate next steps there. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Davis.
So Alex is correct. June 28th is our day to start. We met today, tried to decide where we're putting the job trailers. That'll happen in the next week or so. We are having a pre-construction meeting on the 19th, so I think that's next week. We'll meet, we'll have all the subs for both projects on site, and we'll go through all the logistics of scheduling and students and what all will take place there. Alex is correct about these contracts. There's a stack in my truck that's pretty extensive that we went through. We've sent some out. So what will happen, next steps for you all, once we get those back from the subs, we'll send them to the board, we'll get signatures, they'll go back out as executed copies.
You want to talk about the change order?
Yes.
The contract change?
So we had a subcontractor, Mazzoli and Associates. They were tile. They had the tile package for one of the projects, the Up Center. They sent us a letter. The gentleman called me, said that he's closing his company down, and what could he do to either back out of this or move forward. And at first, I told him that he would have to stay with the contract and see it through, but Then Stephen Ward and I called the KDE and we talked this over with Greg Dunbar and his team, and they basically said as long as, you all could go to the next bidder, which was, I think it was what, $3,200 difference. But we went to Rosa Mosaic. They agreed to lower their price to match Mazzoli and just take over the project. So we do need a motion to get that switched and on.
I appreciate that.
Do you know much about the new construction?
Rosa, yeah, we deal with them all the time.
You deal with them all the time? You like to work and everything?
Yes, oh yeah. They already have 2 other bid packages on the up center.
Okay.
So they were higher, they agreed to lower it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Basically, we just, this is a bit of a formality. It's the same cost. We already accepted the bid. We're just changing who the contractor is.
Okay, so for that, we can just get that out of the way. Do we want a motion to authorize Cordell Construction to void the bid of Mazzoli and Associates and accept the bid at the same value for Rosa Mosaic?
Motion.
All right, all in favor? All right, motion passes on that.
All right, Ben, you want to talk a little bit about the up center and bus maintenance?
I will provide a brief overview of the 2 projects that are going on.
You can speak into the mic a little bit so everybody can hear you.
All right, provide a brief overview of the 2 projects that will be under construction.
You can grab it if you want, just pull it out.
Help him out, Allie.
We'll make sure to talk about it with Stephen and the guys.
Hazing. All right. So the 2 projects under construction are, as we've talked about, the Up Center and the new bus maintenance facility. This is the Up Center facility here. This is a rendering of what the new front of the building will look like. So part of the construction for the Up Center is 2 additions to the building. The front addition will house the conference and classrooms. That'll be a flexible space. And then also on the side of the building, there will be a addition for the health sciences and their classrooms. So that'll be a big upgrade to what they have currently. Here is another view of the front of the building. On the left is the allied service health portion, and then to the left is that front addition. Once again, so primarily we've got the 2 additions to the building, but also the interior of the building will also undergo a full renovation. That includes all of the existing lab spaces, and we will also be relocating some classrooms and the administration wing. I don't know if this has a laser pointer. Yeah. I don't know. So sorry, that's fine. So here is the interior view of the Up Center conference hall. So that is the front addition. So we've got some operable partitions in that area that will allow some flexibility depending on the use of that space. If it's going to be a large conference, potentially it's just some smaller teaching experiences that want to go on in that space. There will have a need. So in the future, a board meeting possibly is going to be held there. So look forward to that. This is the new bus maintenance facility, and that will go to the north side of the academy. So down the hill there. So this will be an upgrade to what the current bus facility is, which is currently to the north side of the ATC. So the new one will have 5 garage bays, which is an upgrade from, I believe, the 2 or 3 bays that we currently have. So, and there will also be a connected covered walkway that will go to the academy. Portion of the academy will be dedicated to part storage and also offices for the bus maintenance facility. 2 of the garage bays will actually be able to go through both sides of the building, which will offer some greater possibilities with that facility. Here is a plan diagram. In red, you can see the bus maintenance, and then also there's the covered walkways that connect to that portion of the academy that will be used by that. There will also be a dedicated bus parking space for all the bus storage and some additional vehicle spaces which could also be used during summertime to house more buses for the district. And lastly, we did have the 2 groundbreakings last month, so thank you to those involved for putting those events together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else you want to add, guys? Or any questions from the board?
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Okay, moving on to the New Haven facility cost estimate. Mr. Pickett?
So we have Wes Davis here as well. The last 4 or 5 weeks since our May board meeting, we have gone back and based on some of our conversations with the board, we've did additional cost estimates with Caudell. Mr. Pickett's also continued to advance some of the design as we think about some of the pieces and parts of that. But the design development drawings were presented in March, April, and they were about 75% through with construction documents in the design process. One of those pieces you've also talked a little bit about over the last 3 or 4 months is, I guess we'd say, drainage and the 58-year-old pipe situation. So you just update us generally kind of where you are on that, and then we can talk about cost estimates, and the board can just discuss some different scenarios.
Yeah, so we continue to develop the drawings. We're at about 75% CDs. And of course, as the more we learn about the building, the more we find. And as Wes referred to, there is a pipe that goes under the building that probably many of you know about or heard about over the years. It's been dealt with. So we're really focused on making sure that, it's showing some issues in the building, so we want to make sure we take care of that. So we've worked with Caudell and engineers to come up with solutions around that pipe as one thing. And then throughout the building, as we develop the drawings and integrate the structure, the structural steel and the roof modifications, we're just learning more and developing the project further.
And recently, you've worked with Caudell just to update them on the design, some of the drainage, the connector. We've updated the cost. The current cost projection, based on the current design, and again, we've been not right on these at times. But Wes, you just want to talk about that in the context, and Jeff, you can add anything you like.
So I think we went up $2.5 million ish from the last estimate. The final estimate we have here is like 16.9 million. It really only affected a few areas. Again, the pipe we keep talking about, which affects some of the site work and other things around it. We also elevated the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing pricing due to current market. I mean, they're just through the roof right now. And then we had a little bit of money in there for the connector, gym, the 4 alternates that are in there. But this is a difficult project in the sense that it's not just a renovation or an addition. So we try to take, the current market square foot price for both renovations we're doing now. It's even different from the up center, and it's a renovation addition. So we feel like we've captured that cost pretty closely, but I mean, as time goes on, this price, obviously, we've seen what it does. It's going to continue to grow, but Jeff is working with his team and trying to fine-tune everything that we can on the design.
So I thought it was 16.6. Yeah, 16.6 was the most recent estimate. So from a planning standpoint, if we look at that in terms of the whole design process, today, if you were to transition this project towards bid, which we're not ready to do that yet, but if we were, we would be looking at the current design. The estimated overall bond could potentially be somewhere around $19 to $20 million, depending on the process. Jeff, anything you would add to that, just in terms of context around the design?
Well, I think from the beginning we were asked to reimagine New Haven. And we started out with a $5 million budget, which was a renovation cost for just MEP. And everyone knew that wasn't what we needed to do for New Haven. So we increased the budget to 10 point something. And then we also know it's been many years now where that number started. And with the history of projects bidding and the market, the design really hasn't changed other than adding the connector and discovering some things in the building, and then the drainage issue. So there's been costs added there, but in terms of the design and the vision from the very beginning, it really hasn't changed. I mean, these renderings, for example, are a couple of years old now, and we've just been developing that project.
If you were, so you said you're about 75% completion on the drawings. So if, in terms of a timeline, which I know may be tough to say, but do you know at what point you feel like we'll be ready to put it out for bids and kind of just to get us an idea about moving this project along?
Yeah, we could be in line to finish the drawings in about 3 months.
Okay.
And then the process, obviously, is kind of expensive. But that's really the bigger issue is lead times. Talk about that.
Yeah, so if it took Jeff 3 months to finalize the drawings, we would be another month and a half, 2 months, preparing bid documents and things like that to put it on the street. But like Jeff was referring to, our biggest challenge is lead times for HVAC equipment. We're seeing 52 weeks on a lot of jobs right now for any kind of HVAC item. So if you pulled the trigger and said go with this project, we realistically couldn't even start till after school year next year. I mean, you could start, you could get some demolition done. Is it really helping the project if you can't get, the equipment to finish it? So we would really need to sit down and put a timeline and a schedule to that if that's the direction that we're going.
So the board conversation was really just considering, there was a few considerations of, do we evaluate the design? Jeff and their team are not going to take any action on the design. They're going to continue to act on the current design unless otherwise directed to do so. What that could in theory look like is that they would say, here are some potential solutions if you wanted to reevaluate it under a 250 or 300 student capacity. Currently, the building is by KDE reg, which is on our DFP, the capacity is 448. And that doesn't mean it's really meant for 448. We know it's not meant for 448. And we also know that we've never really had a P5 scenario at the New Haven school. And I think it's also important to note that if there's anybody at New Haven that's listening or maybe listening to this conversation, there's never been any conversation that I'm aware of that we weren't going to invest in the New Haven school. Even if the enrollment next year is around 210, we project P5. With that in mind, we never considered not making this investment and always having a community school in New Haven. I share that just to mitigate anyone that's concerned about, whether the pipe or this or the cost impacts that. It doesn't. Not that I'm aware of. So I share that to say it's really just a matter of whether or not the board wants Jeff to consider alternative solutions at a broad global level to consider any potential capacity or redesign or cost reductions based on what we see as potentially a $19 million to $20 million cost. We know that when Ms. Clark and team enter into that building next year, they're going to learn a few things because they're not middle schoolers there. Jeff is going to look at the building a little differently at times. But it would take 6 to 8 weeks minimum, I would say, for Pickett and Possefume to give the board reasonable considerations, not in-depth designs, but reasonable considerations to say, here are some potential solutions to consider as a board in the design process that may add new benefits that we didn't consider, may add other challenges that we were unaware of.
Any questions?
So, basically it's, does the board want Pickett and Possefume to consider any alternative designs in light of capacity reality in New Haven School? And that would potentially, we assume, would be done under the belief that costs would be reduced.
Yes.
So just board discussion around that issue.
Well, I would really want to rely on the professionals for that. Jim Codell, what are you all looking at? Do you believe it's more school than, we want it to be adequate for the number of students we have, and we want to allow for room for growth. The hope would be that it would grow. So what's your thought on that?
Well, I think that it's worth looking at. I think it's worth to consider the numbers where it's going to be. One of the big factors are the sizes of classrooms.
Jeff, if you could speak at that mic, people are actually going to listen to this conversation.
What I was saying, one of the major factors is the size of the rooms, and they vary from one wing or one area of the building. So when we look at any changes or modifications, we have to consider those, and we'd like to come back and present that to you so that you see the whole picture and make sure that you're making the right decision.
I'm concerned with downsizing it. I mean, we have to get the Kentucky Department of Education is okay on that, but I don't want to limit the staff down there on the room size. I think they're just too small right now, and I think we need to be careful. And I know you all will. I got a lot of faith in what you all for, and I appreciate it. But just, I'm okay with looking at it. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, but I'm okay with looking at it. But I'll still want to be careful not to hinder that building.
I just want to make sure that the facility team that was originally committed to looking at that design, they're at that table, because it's the people in the building, Ms. Clark and the other parents and teachers that were part of that design process. I think they need to be part of that conversation. It's easy for us to sit up here and, be concerned about the cost. But like Mr. Norman said, they're the ones living in that space. I want to make sure that they are comfortable with that space and they can envision what it's going to do for them and for their students.
Definitely staff knows a lot more than we know.
Right.
Yeah, Tiffany, have you walked it with them?
I've been with Jeff since the very beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I think just making sure they're at the table.
It's been years at this point. We were
I know.
hoping to start renovation.
Okay, so you have walked with them and made suggestions and all that good stuff.
They're at the table. Right.
Yeah.
She's at the table with them.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think to protect Jeff, we do have to make a motion for Pickett and Possum to consider alternative designs in light of capacity reduction. And I think at this point it would probably be safe to just say consider alternate designs based on our discussion.
I like that better.
So, and Jeff understands what that means. We do have to protect Jeff on some level. At the same time, Jeff is a partner with us, and I think here's what that looks like. He's not counting beans on us, and every time he really is trying to think. He wants you and the school to get a great product that makes sense for the district. He doesn't want you to spend unnecessarily. And he also wants to make sure that we have a ongoing trust in the process that allows us to make good investments over time. So I share that because that's something that a good architect team does and you can rely upon. And we have that with both Jeff's team and Steven's team. And I share that just to say, this is partly also to let him know he's able to take this action long term, because we also do eventually have to pay him. So there's really, I suppose the motion would be to request that Pickett and Possum consider alternate designs in light of our discussion today.
Okay, and what he said, yes, alternate designs, consideration based on our discussion today. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you all. Okay. Moving on, student shareholder engagement. Board calendar. Superintendent Bradley.
Our next meeting is at the Nelson County Early Learning Center on July 16th. Currently, that would be a regularly scheduled meeting. Following that, we potentially would be getting information back regarding tax assessments in August and/or September, which allows us to finalize the working budget for the year.
Okay, all right, and moving on to board celebrations.
I will say one thing before we move on to board celebration. I just want to make sure we add to the agenda to review, because I didn't catch it today, Mr. Thompson's contract. Just so we make sure that's added to the agenda for next month. Board celebration. We had two of our high schools had amazing graduation processes, and we got to send the students off, and it's always a great time of year to witness that. And again. You had 2 students graduate, which is, you get to experience that all in itself. We also have students that are continuing to show up and be celebrated, FFA, Beta, they've all been busy and going to conventions and bringing home some great celebrations. So I want to continue to celebrate those students that continue to thrive even after school is ended. And as you all witnessed, we did have breaking ground on this facility and the bus garage over the last few weeks. And again, big, important things and exciting times for Nelson County Schools. And we have a lot to celebrate.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, I'm sorry if I interrupted you.
I'm used to it. But
go ahead. You go ahead, Dave.
I just want to thank the teachers out there. You know, like I've said before, we can't do without the teachers. They're the number one thing to make sure our kids get cared for and get ready to learn. And I'm seeing some improvements in our academics now, and I appreciate the teachers very much. I can't thank them enough. So that's what I want to thank.
Well, it just kind of,
thank you.
What Tracy said, I do think our district does a really good job of making the last couple of weeks of school so special for the graduates and their families, and it's always really fun to see. So I appreciate all the work that goes into that and the planning. So, yeah, anybody else?
I want to thank the workforce development, and Ms. Arnold, I'm not trying to make life hard for you. I just want to make sure that we're in the law because they're watching us, and you know that. So I want to make sure everything was A-okay, okay? Because I truly love that, the whole concept of what is going on, okay? And now also we've got some, I know we don't talk much about some of the sports, but we had one of our little people from Nelson County make all-region. We had a young lady make all-region in softball. We have some wrestlers out there. We have a variety of things going on, you know, including that young lady from Bethlehem that made the AU. She made great things. So things are going well in Nelson County. So.
I'm going to add one more thing because she brought up something that just triggered me. Our Family Resource Centers held a Shoot Hoops, Not Drugs event a few days ago, and I didn't attend, but just by looking at it, it looked spectacular. And I will say again, the ladies in our Family Resource Centers, they move the world. They are the change makers in our district, and we need to celebrate them, and we need to thank them every time we see them in our schools and see them in Kroger or out purchasing things for the students. They move the boulders out of the way so our students find success, and we need to continue to celebrate them.
All right, so that being said, do we have a motion to adjourn the regular session?
Make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, Daniel, we're on it. All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, meeting adjourned.